woke up quick at about noon.
Well, last night was certainly a night I don't think any of us will ever forget. Welcome into the podcast with Damien Barling, presented, as always, by Vibe Health Bar. Well, not the show I thought we would be doing here today. I thought we would be talking about the outcome of the Sacramento Kings and the New Orleans Pelicans, though I have some thoughts on that and things that happen. I guess we just got to dive right into this. There really is nothing to talk about in terms of actual on-the-court play, on the field play, on the ice play. There's nothing really to talk about there. This has just become kind of your latest update into the world of the coronavirus and how it pertains to the sports landscape. And yesterday, shortly after our podcast ended, we found out that the Chase Center was going to be essentially shut down. Basically, San Francisco was going to be shut down. The Bay Area was going to be shut down in terms of large gatherings. I believe the proclamation was anything we strongly recommend against any event over 1,000 people. And I think that was shortly after the podcast ended. Like it was 9 something. You know, it was still, or maybe 10. It was relatively early in the day. And when we got that alert, I thought, okay, the Kings Pelicans game it's not going to happen the way we think it is. Like I think they're going to suspend fans from the Golden One Center. And kind of waited. And then as the afternoon went along, it was like, okay, I guess they're not. And then we hear about the Board of Governors call, the conference call that went on. Sam Amick did a fantastic job reporting on that, as did Adrian Wojnarowski, Shams, Zach Lowe. All of those guys did a really good job of reporting what went on during that conference call. And it became increasingly clear as the day went along that, okay, no matter what happens tonight, this is probably the last game of the NBA season that's going to feel regular. Or more specifically, this is the last night of the NBA season that's going to feel regular. It just so happens that the Kings had the last game of the night scheduled with the national television start on ESPN against the New Orleans Pelicans. It's like, okay, this will be the last moment of normalness for a while as it pertains to not just the NBA, because yesterday, color me surprised, Mark Emmert, NCAA took a preventative action that you could argue was the correct preventative action in suspending fans from basically the entire NCAA tournament. And now, and I do wonder, and I'm going to try to keep my phone here close by me as we do this podcast, but I do very much wonder if the NCAA tournament as a whole is going to get canceled. I think suspending fans from the arenas, I think that's the right thing to do. I just wonder, is that going to stop? Would it stop fans from traveling? Would it stop schools from traveling? Would it stop, parents and because I imagine, it's not going to be fun not being able to get into the arena. But I would think, especially if you're a good traveling school, that you'll probably get a lot of your fans there. Get a lot of your students there. And then, of course, parents and family are still going to come in. They may not be able to go to the game, but I still think they're going to, what if the son or daughter winds up winning the NCAA tournament? They want to be there to celebrate with them, even though they can't be on the court. And I keep trying to imagine, what will that final moment be like? And let me be clear. I don't think that the NCAA tournament's going to happen. Just my opinion. Based on what happened with the NBA season yesterday, the NHL is meeting today. MLB is working out contingency plans for the start of their season. It doesn't look like there are going to be any games played in the state of California through the first part of the Major League Baseball season. Opening day is certainly going to be impacted, it appears. Those two major sports organizations are meeting. The NFL is trying to figure out what they're going to do about the draft coming up in Las Vegas, which is still over a month away. So, with all of that, I think ultimately what's going to happen is the NCAA tournament is just going to be canceled. But I keep trying to play out, what is that final moment going to look like? What would it look like when, they're climbing the ladder to cut the net off and no one's there's just noise from the players and essential staff and personnel. I want the tournament to happen just because I want to see this visual play out. Like we're used to, fireworks and confetti and all of this stuff falling. Just when the buzzer goes off, is it just, okay, we won the NCAA tournament, and you're like looking around, and it's now, it's scheduled for the Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta, and I know as of yesterday they were trying to move it out of the Mercedes-Benz, so they weren't just playing, in 100,000 or close to 100,000 seat arena completely empty. They're trying to move it to a smaller venue. Again, ultimately, my belief is it's canceled completely. But my thing with the Kings yesterday was, as the afternoon went along, I was really surprised that the game wasn't canceled. And I thought, and maybe this is unfair of me, I thought when the edict came down from the city of San Francisco and it was announced that the Warriors-Nets game was going to be played inside the Chase Center with no fans allowed, my opinion was that the Kings should have taken a preventative measure right there to say, okay, we all know, and I think, a large chunk of this audience, 90+% of this audience is listening in the state of California. We know how intertwined Sacramento and the Bay Area are. I mean, it's a couple hours away. The various communities in San Francisco, the various communities in the Bay Area in general, whether it's Oakland or San Carlos, San Mateo, whatever, they're all pretty closely intertwined here to the city of Sacramento. And you can make your jokes about housing prices and commutes and all of that different stuff. But when that edict came down, I thought, man, the Kings can't let people into the arena tonight. Like that would be incredibly. And I understand the inconvenience of it. I understand it's a nationally televised game. It's the only nationally televised game that the Sacramento Kings have. I get all that. But in the end, it was like, this is a public safety issue. And I think we're past the point of looking at things like an overreaction. Because think about this. What is the number? And I think I had it for you yesterday. Let me see if I can pull it up here. And I'm positive the number has changed. Maybe I didn't have it yesterday. But the number of cases, let's see, more than 113,000 people worldwide have tested positive for the disease, and over 3,900 people have died, most of them in China. 62,000 people have already recovered. The virus has infected. Okay, so this was from our show on Monday. This is from the podcast on Monday. The virus has infected 600 people in the United States. Okay, again, that was from Monday. Think about this for a minute. The NBA shut their league down when they found out one player tested positive for the virus. One. That is how. So it leads me to believe in the belief behind this is it's a preventative measure because of how contagious the virus is and how easily transmitted it is. And I feel like I'm sorry, I studied the wrong things over the course of the last few days. I'm used to talking about sports, and occasionally we'll sprinkle in some politics or some entertainment here. I didn't realize I need to become a expert in disease and disease prevention and all of that stuff. I can tell you now I'm very much not. I'm reading the same exact things that you are. And my understanding is this is an incredibly contagious virus, and that's why all of these preventative measures have been taken. So if the number that we were talking about just a couple of days ago was 600 people in the United States, God knows how many people here, 600 people is what we're talking about. In multiple sports leagues, one has already done it. The NHL is at least having a conversation about it, has suspended their season until further notice, leads me to believe a couple of things. One, maybe there are a lot more people affected by this virus than we've been made aware of. Maybe there are significantly more people affected by this virus than we've been made aware of. Like, we're talking about 600 people. Those are the amount of people that have tested positive for this virus. 600. San Francisco has shut down. San Francisco says you can't gather with more than this number of people. If you have tickets to an event at the Golden One Center over the course of the next month, it's almost certainly going to be canceled. I had tickets. I was going to go see Michelle Obama speak April 1st. It hasn't been canceled yet. I would be stunned if it wasn't. I would think anything that's happening within the next 4 weeks at the Golden One Center is going to be canceled. Everything that's happening at the Chase Center over the course of the next, what day is it? 12th. So over the course of the next 3 weeks has already been canceled. So, the large gatherings are being suspended. And I wonder, like, what do we really know about this disease? Or virus, I should say. What do we really know about this virus? Oh my gosh, Tom Hanks and his wife got it. Oh, okay. Like, that sucks. Like, it's not a death sentence. Like, it's not Magic Johnson standing at the podium saying, I'm going to have to, due to the HIV virus I have attained, I've got to retire from the Lakers today. Like, it's not that. It sucks, but we're not there yet. But I also don't think we're at the point where we're only talking about 600 people. There has to be. The numbers say if this virus is as contagious as we've been told that it is, there has to be significantly more than 600 people who have it. There have to be multiples and multiples and multiples and multiples and multiples of that number. It's only like, unless you're telling me those 600 people who tested positive knew right away, went to the doctor, were quarantined, didn't affect anybody else, and we're good to go. That's just not realistic. And I think where some people have, like fans booing at the Golden One Center last night, like, come on, man. Maybe they didn't understand the gravity of what was going on. And the truth is, going back to, the point I was attempting to start to make a few moments ago, I was critical of the Kings organization last night because I thought they should have stepped up and barred. I thought they should have suspended fans from the arena yesterday afternoon, if not yesterday morning. And I thought the longer that the Kings allowed that to go on, the worse it was. Now, once we got to the tip of the Oklahoma City-Utah game, it didn't really matter at that point. Once we got to the start of the slate of games, it was like, okay, this game is going to happen. I disagreed with it, but it was a decision. They went with it. They were comfortable with it. Fine. Okay, let's move along. What do we got here? And I'm starting to plan. I had these Lonzo Ball stats that I gave them to you yesterday. I was going to tweet those out and start actually, tweeting about basketball, talking about basketball, laying out today's show, laying out the post-game show for the Sacramento Kings podcast. By the way, for those of you who are gracious enough to listen to the Sacramento Kings podcast, that podcast too has been at least temporarily halted. Aaron Brewski, who runs the Hoopball website, reached out to us all individually last night and said, hey, we want to be sensitive to what's going on. We want to get kind of a greater understanding of what's going on. So let's just put a halt on all individual podcasts for now. And once we get a better feel for what's happening, we'll get back to it. So the Kings podcast is just temporarily on hold. And I promise I'll let you know once I get the thumbs up to get back to working on that one. But once we got to the tip of the start, the first handful of games, it was like, okay, this is going to happen. Let's go. And I happened to be on League Pass when I got the alert that something was going on at the Oklahoma City game. So, if you have the app on Apple TV, the scores, you have like a box, or you can set it up how you want to, but you could have a box that's showing you the game, and then below it are like, the scores for all of the other ones. So I kind of flicked over to the Oklahoma City game, and they're showing this graphic on repeat. It's just the Oklahoma City graphic, it's the Utah Jazz graphic, and it's on repeat with like pop music playing in the background. And then they introduce Frankie J. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, Frankie J used to do the Cinco de Mayo concerts that KSFM used to put on. And it was like, okay, now he's doing is he doing a coronavirus intermission show here? Like, what's going on? I assume he was the halftime act. I don't know what he was, but he started singing, and I'm watching this like, what is going on here? And tweets start going out, and then everything kind of breaks for a second. They come back, and you hear the PA announcer say, due to unforeseen circumstances, tonight's game has been canceled. And he follows it up with immediate. I think I have the audio here. He follows it up right away by saying, you're all safe. Please exit in an orderly fashion. I didn't preview this sound, but I do believe this is that moment.
And fans, due to unforeseen circumstances, the game tonight has been postponed. You are all safe, and take your time in leaving the arena tonight and do so in an orderly fashion. Thank you for coming out tonight. And you can visit OKCThunder.com for updates on upcoming games.
What a difficult announcement that had to be, because you've got to say it, and you pretty much immediately have to follow it up with, like, it's okay, you're safe, just get the hell out. Everybody get the hell out. And then you start to read tweets about what actually happened, and it plays out like a bizarre movie. Like, nothing that happened last night, as weird as what went on in Sacramento was, nothing can play out stranger than what happened with the Oklahoma City-Utah game. And of course, Rudy Gobert, now infamous. Rudy Gobert's name will live forever, because he's the guy who thought it would be funny when they, quarantined the reporters and pushed the reporters 8 to 9 feet back or whatever that distance was. And everyone's microphone and tape recorders and MP3 recorders and digital recorders, all of those things were placed on the table. And he was sitting in his chair, and he wraps up. And of course, again, this video is going to live forever. He puts his hands, just, I guess, to be funny, he puts his hands on every reporter's microphone, recorder, device, everything, phone, whatever it was, and then leaves. Okay. Life comes at you pretty fast, Rudy. And I don't, you don't need to. I have plenty of reason to dislike Rudy Gobert, and we'll get to that in just a couple of minutes as well. But, like, come on. One, that was incredibly stupid. It shows you how ignorant we are to what is actually going on. Rudy Gobert was so ignorant to the process, he thought that bit would be funny. And you could see reporters chuckling and laughing, because I don't think we have a grasp of how serious this is. And maybe it's because it hasn't, maybe we just look at it like, oh, it's a really bad flu. Okay. One, really bad flus suck. But think about the dynamics of what we're talking about. Well, it affects elderly people the most and people with weaker immune systems. Fine. I was talking to my best friend last night, and, we had to have the conversation. His 2 kids are my godson and my goddaughter. They go to school, they play sports. This virus is out there. And you think, well, okay, it's a bad flu. It doesn't really, it's not going to affect the kid too much, or it's not going to, affect someone younger with a stronger immune system. Okay, fine. But we had to have the conversation last night about my godkids having restricted access to their grandparents until this passes. Because now there's a concern that, well, if one of them, does, get some semblance of this virus, and maybe they don't know it right away, but it gets passed along to their grandparents, that's what we're talking about. That's the gravity of what we're talking about. Which is why I thought yesterday, no matter how confident the Sacramento Kings organization was yesterday afternoon, they should, the moment that announcement was made by the city of San Francisco and the Golden State Warriors, the Sacramento Kings should have followed suit. And we have to understand also that right now it is more prominent in certain regions than it is other. If you live in the city of Sacramento or around the city of Sacramento, you know how prominent it is here right now. Elk Grove is shut down. Sac State has suspended virtually everything except the actual classes. And this is the thing that's baffling to me too. The Rockland School District, they've suspended all of their school activities. They've suspended junior prom. They've suspended things like that, but they haven't actually suspended classes. It's like, okay, we're suspending the fun stuff, but we're going to make sure you're still here in class, as if the classroom makes you immune to transmitting the disease or the virus or whatever. But the point is, it's very, very prominent in this area, which is why I thought that the Kings, before the game, should have suspended fans from the arena. Now, once we got to the point with Rudy Gobert, once we got to the point of the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Utah Jazz, that game being completely halted, and then we hear about, I started to tell this story and got sidetracked. Sorry, that's probably going to happen a lot today. As most of you know, normally I have a kind of like a lineup of, what we're going to do, what we're going to talk about. There's only one thing on the lineup today. and it's the impact of this virus on sports. But you start reading the tweets from like Royce Young, who I thought did a fantastic job of covering this event last night, as did Eric Horn. They're tweeting the game. Someone comes running out of the tunnel, and I guess it was someone from the Utah Jazz. Someone comes running out of the tunnel and runs up to the officials and says something to the officials. And the officials have this bewildered look on their face. And I think it was the Utah Jazz security guard was the first one who said, "I'm getting my guys out of here. We're going to the locker room." So eventually all of the teams break off to the locker room. The referees are speaking with each other on the court. The referees, they leave the court. They're obviously getting on the horn with the NBA. I assume, again, wasn't there. I'm assuming what that Utah Jazz official said to the referees were, "We have a problem. Rudy Gobert," or, it was being reported, one of our players tested positive for the coronavirus. And if you followed Sam Amick's reporting or Adrian Wojnarowski's reporting throughout the day, you saw I took note. Patient zero, I think, was the term that they were using. Basically, what they were saying is we can't allow a single player to catch this virus, because if we do, the domino effect would be absolutely extraordinary. Within 5 minutes of that moment, the NBA season had been canceled. So we had heard all day, prepare for, watching NBA games with no audience. Prepare for filling out papers to get ticket refunds, season ticket refunds. God knows what, workers at arenas were preparing for. Just things are about to change. And we knew that there was a conference call today, and even said yesterday, like there's a good chance that the Pelicans-Kings game is going to be the last normal basketball game we see for a very, very long time. And it didn't make it that far. The second one player tested positive for this virus, the season was suspended. It was all over. And this is where the NBA lost me here. NBA's call to suspend the season, 100% correct. I guess you could make the argument. Games were already happening. They were about halfway done. I think it was Dallas was playing somebody. I can't remember who, sorry. But, Dallas was in the first game on ESPN. And it was just probably a little over halfway through. The only game that hadn't tipped was the Kings and the Pelicans. And it was like, okay, the season's suspended. Why is this game happening? All games should be suspended immediately. If you wanted to finish the games that were playing, fine. Like I don't have a problem with that. I'm sure it was kind of weird for the players because it was, Mark Cuban got the notice. He found out the season was suspended. I feel like he found out like the rest of us did. He just looks at his phone. He has this reaction, and then he gets up and he goes over and talks to members of his team. I assume he told, Rick Carlisle, and then Rick told the rest of the guys. So guys knew, the guys knew that this was these were the last moments of professional basketball they were going to play for at least the immediate future. We don't know how long this suspension is going to last. Mark Cuban was talking about potentially playing games into August. Well, so let's take that nugget. And again, this is Mark Cuban just talking, and like that's fine. Like he doesn't know what's going on either. I mean, he's a little bit more informed than we are. Or he's a lot bit more informed than we are. But he's talking about potentially playing games into August, and it's like, well, wait a minute, Mark. Until further notice, it's an Olympic year, and until we're told that it's not, it is. It's an Olympic year, and I think the Olympics start in late July. Also, if you're playing games in August, and let's even go with the extreme case here, let's say we're playing games at the beginning of August. Well, the season starts, training camp reports in September. What are these like? So we're just eliminating the off season, and I know that they're on break right now, but still, it's not an off season. Like these guys got to work out, they've got to get treatment, they got to do all of their normal stuff because they might have to play basketball again. And I assume, in this is my belief, that this is a situation that's just going to be monitored over the course of the next couple of weeks. And my feeling right now is if the NBA feels that they can safely resume the NBA season in April, don't make up regular season games. And I know for Kings fans, this sucks because you believed you were in the playoff hunt and all of that. You had 60 some odd games to earn a playoff position. If you didn't do it, you didn't do it. Don't try to make up regular season games. Seasons get shortened because of labor issues all the time. If a season gets shortened, even though unexpectedly because of a worldwide pandemic, that's fine. It's okay. If the NBA is able to start the season like when the start of the playoffs would be, roll with it. Again, this is a giant if because we're talking about like a month from now. NBA playoffs are scheduled to start a month from now. And what I wonder about this virus is, have we hit is it one of those situations where it's going to get really, really bad before it gets better? Donovan Mitchell has also tested positive for the coronavirus. I've just glanced at my phone here, and Donovan Mitchell, of course, a member of the Utah Jazz. So that's the 6 degrees of separation. The Utah Jazz were quarantined. It's not even 6 degrees. It's 1 degree. These guys are on the same team. But once you get to the 6 degrees part, we've got Oklahoma City now. Is anybody within Utah? I mentioned this last night. The Boston Celtics are quarantined. I have pretty good knowledge on this information. The Celtics, as of last night, were stuck in their hotel in Milwaukee. I assume they're still stuck there. They have to get tested. They have to coordinate between states, between Milwaukee and Massachusetts, or Wisconsin and Massachusetts. They've got to coordinate how to get a group of players back. And then if anybody tests positive, I assume they just have to sit in the hotel room in Milwaukee, or they have to get a separate plane sent for them. I don't know how this works. You remember we were talking about one of the things that the NBA, it was reported one of the things that the NBA had kicked around, I think Woj tweeted this, was the potential of playing games in neutral sites, or the potential of playing games in, quote, unaffected areas. This right now is the reason you can't do it. Because if last night Oklahoma City was an uninfected area, well, guess what? Not anymore. The hotel that Rudy Gobert, the hotel that the Utah Jazz stayed in, it had to get shut down and evacuated. Like that's what we're talking about. And again, it's not the deadliness of this virus, it's the ease of transmission of this virus. And while it being passed from Rudy Gobert to Donovan Mitchell, hopefully it's not the end of the world. But being, Donovan Mitchell being passed to 45-year-old fan in Oklahoma City, who then passes it on to 75-year-old mom. Well, okay, now it's a problem. Now we've got an issue. And that's what the NBA is attempting to shut down. So now we have 2 members of the Utah Jazz who have tested positive for this virus. And now, teams are frantically, when did we last play Utah? The Cavs, the Celtics, who I just mentioned, the Pistons, the Knicks, and the Raptors. They've all played the Utah Jazz in the last 10 days. The Jazz and the Thunder were essentially locked in that locker room. They're like, hey, we're stuck here until health officials clear you and allow us to leave. That's what these tests were for. That's why every member of the Utah Jazz was tested, was to find out that Donovan Mitchell has it. And now, I mean, you're kind of in the situation where, the Cavs, but Courtney Kirkland played a part in last night's game being canceled. Which, again, Courtney Kirkland notwithstanding, that game should have been canceled the moment. And that's where it kind of falls out of the Sacramento Kings' hands to a certain degree. When the NBA suspended their regular season, they should have just got on the horn with Sacramento and New Orleans and said, hey, this game, there's no reason for this. This ain't happening. And, people tweeting me last night, when I was expressing my displeasure, which is the dangers of me getting back involved with Twitter, is, well, this is an ESPN call. No, it's not. This is not an ESPN call. This is not a network call. ESPN went to Scott Van Pelt at like 5:15. SVP show starts at midnight, for God's sake. They went to for us on the West Coast, it starts at 9 p.m. They went to him 4 hours early. He was okay. This wasn't a network call. It started as a Sacramento Kings call. It became an NBA call, and both entities made the wrong decision until, apparently, by reports from Sam Amick last night, it was the Pelicans who were like, dude, no, we ain't going out there. Whether it was Courtney Kirkland or just the fact that, like, what are we going to go out there and play for? What are we going to expose ourselves to a situation where, we could all become ill, where our families could become ill? Why would we expose all of, 17,000 people to a situation where they could become ill and their families would become ill? That game going as far as it did, that game not being canceled right away, I just think it was an irresponsible decision by the NBA. I think it was an irresponsible decision at first by the Sacramento Kings, and maybe it was the city of Sacramento who should have done more. But ultimately, the right thing was done, and the game was canceled. I feel bad for all of those. I'm not naive to the inconvenience of people who drove down there and, spent $20, $30, $40 for parking and, dealt with the hassles of getting in the arena and bought food. Like, I'm not naive to that. Like, that sucks. I feel bad for, people who got turned away. There's the viral video of the little girl crying. Like, it sucks. But it shouldn't have come to that. It is my issue. It shouldn't have come to that. And if the Kings are not at fault, good. The NBA is at fault. That game should have been canceled at 5:35 or whatever time it was when, or I think it was later than that. But you know where I'm getting at. When the season was canceled, that game should have been canceled because it hadn't tipped yet. If you want to finish the games that were going on, and I don't know the outcome of any game last night, so sorry. I know that Vince Carter might have played his last game. That's a travesty. That's not the way this is. I know Vince Carter comes in. Again, it's the Knicks and the Hawks. Both teams know what's going on. Vince Carter checks in with like 20 seconds left, hits a three, and suddenly one of the most beloved careers comes to an end, probably. Again, the regular season ends a month from now. Events of more than 1,000 people in the state of California ain't happening. Or in the city of, I should say in San Francisco. I don't know if that extends to the state of California yet, but it's Sacramento, or San Francisco, excuse me. Because I hadn't heard much about LA or the Staples Center shutting down events. But what a bizarre night. As I said, you've got like Fred Hoiberg. He's the head coach for Nebraska. He fell ill last night. They rushed him to the hospital. They're testing him to see what's going on. According to reports at last night, he's not quarantined. He was released from the hospital. He just has a cold. We mentioned earlier the NHL is discussing playing or announcing what's going to go on with the rest of their season. That is expected to be announced here today. Here's an article. There's an article from The Athletic. I understand. I recognize the dangers of me reading here while we're doing the podcast, especially now that we're doing the video form. Doing the video form, I changed the lighting a little bit. Curious how that looks. I really don't know. I feel like I'm under interrogation. Let's see. The New Orleans Pelicans on hand at the Golden One Center. Couldn't get out of town fast enough. Our guys don't want to play, one Pelican source said just minutes before the game was canceled. That's just a note in Sam Amick's latest article, along with Jason Jones as well. Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram, they took the floor for a few minutes. The crowd was booing. We noted that. Hey, Sam, did you write that piece on Patient Zero today? Oh, yeah. So there's this. If you don't subscribe to the article, if you don't subscribe yet to The Athletic, you definitely should. It is well worth your time. Jason Jones and Sam Amick have the Kings side of this covers. Let's see what Luke Walton say. Whoever needs or is feeling under the weather has the opportunity to sit down and meet with the doctors and have them look at them. Everyone that I'm aware of in our group, no one feels under the weather. Before the suspension of the season, Walton said he had no preference as to whether games should be played without fans, which the Warriors were set to do when hosting the Brooklyn Nets tomorrow night. The NBA does a good job of making these choices. We'll leave it at that. The Athletic is a paid subscription site that you absolutely should spend the $3 or $4 or whatever it is, or catch them on a sale when they're $2, but it's good stuff. So there's going to be reports all day about what the NBA does next. I assume the big conference call that they were scheduled to have today, I imagine that still happens. I'm curious how last night's decision played out, because it was so quick that in the earlier discussion, it had to have been said. It just had to have been said. If one player tests positive, we're shutting things down. Can we all be in agreement? And apparently they were in agreement, because from the time the Oklahoma City game was canceled to the time the Rudy at the Utah Jazz player who tested positive for the coronavirus, I mean, we are talking a matter of minutes. This wasn't Adam Silver jumping on the phone with 30 owners in the NBA. This was the plan being in place, Adam Silver or the NBA board finding out what happened in Oklahoma City, and them going with the plan that they had discussed earlier and shutting down the season. If patient zero, right? That's what Sam Amick was talking about. Patient zero. One guy tests positive, season is shut down immediately. And that's what happened. I do have a little bit of sound here for you. Again, it's all related to the coronavirus last night. Here's Eric Spoelstra talking about the suspension of the season. Maybe. Perhaps. I guess my sound just doesn't want to cooperate now that we're doing, the video stream. It wants to be difficult. So if you just give me here. See, I have a rule on the podcast for those who knew. I don't edit. I try to treat this like a live radio show. And I guess now that we're doing stuff on video, it wants to be complicated. Let's try this again. Take two. Eric Spoelstra here talking about the suspension of the NBA season. All right. I give up. Never mind. It wasn't even important. Forget it. Who cares what Eric Spoelstra said? He probably says he's surprised. He probably says he doesn't know what, he was as shocked as anybody to hear it. He probably says they had a plan in place. I don't know. Third time's the charm? No, third time's not the charm. Okay, who cares? Who cares what Eric Spoelstra says? Forget it. So I guess now we'll just wait and see what the NCAA does. Amazingly, the NCAA, I thought, made the right decision in barring fans from the tournament. And barring is a strong word. Suspending fans, not allowing fans in. I thought that was absolutely the right call. Now I think there's an overwhelming feeling that maybe you just move forward this year without the NCAA tournament. I want to make sure that I touched on all of the main notes. I guess we'll just wait and see what happens with the Celtics, the Knicks, Raptors, Cavs, all of those teams. We'll wait to see what happens with them. And then I guess there are other events. Like there's a note here talking about, what happened. WrestleMania is not far away. What if WrestleMania is suspended? And I know, I understand some of you may not care. We've got the announcement that Rob Gronkowski is signing a contract with the WWE, a contract similar to what Ronda Rousey signed, in that he's going to be an active performer. He's not a one-off performer. Like he's going to be there. He's going to work. He's going to be on Monday Night Raw or SmackDown or one of those shows. Like he's going to be a big part of what the WWE is doing. He was going to be a part of WrestleMania. WrestleMania is scheduled, I think, this year in Tampa. So you start these big events. If you're going to cancel March Madness, I think, doesn't WWE have to? Even WrestleMania, SmackDown is tomorrow. Is that going to happen? Are public gatherings, and man, I've resisted making this correlation, but I feel like I have to. For those of you, and I realize this is 19 years ago. If you remember September 11th, all of the, obviously we all remember September 11th. I'm talking about the sports impact of, what happened on that, Tuesday, how NFL games were suspended. Major League Baseball was suspended for a while. WWE held, an event in Houston on September 11th, 12th, 13th. I think SmackDown was still on Thursday at the time, and they had an event. It wasn't they like to tout it as the first public assembly of its size. It wasn't, but it was a big event. It was one of the few big events that took place, one of the first big events that took place following September 11th. But you recall how events were shut down. I wonder, is that what we're headed to? Is it and maybe it's completely dependent on region. I don't know where SmackDown is scheduled to be Friday, but does that event get shut down? We know there's no NBA games tonight. There's no NBA games for the foreseeable future. Do movie theaters shut down? Again, I don't know. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm just asking questions. Disneyland hasn't shut down. They're handing out hand sanitizer or something like that, or hand wipes. Hey, all about that money, all about that bread. But what next? I said this to you before. I think we're one state capital or one midtown area infection away from a complete city of Sacramento shutdown. And hopefully it doesn't come to that. But this is just something that continues, to evolve, and I don't feel like I'm talking super intelligently about it. So please forgive me. This is something I'm still trying to learn about and figure out. I'm asking more questions than I'm answering here on this podcast because I've got a lot of questions. So the NBA season as we know it for the foreseeable future is over. The future of the NFL draft, or at least the NFL draft as we know it, is in question. Right now, March Madness is scheduled to be played without fans. The NCAA tournament, including those games at the Golden One Center, is scheduled to be played without fans. I think we're headed to an extreme likelihood where the NCAA tournament is canceled altogether. We may very well have seen our last college basketball game last night, though, of course, most of us probably haven't watched college basketball this season because the tournament hasn't started, and that's generally when we watch basketball and then pretend like we've been watching it all year. And then I guess we'll just monitor all of the other events ahead of us. The NHL, by the time we come back tomorrow, and I don't know what the hell we're going to talk about tomorrow, but by the time we return, the NHL season may be canceled. I was worried all week, man, you can't ignore the coronavirus because it's out there and it's kind of it's a part of the world and it's a part of what we're dealing with right now. But am I talking too much about it? How can I, get into a show and not mention it? And it's well, you can't. This is just not happening. So appreciate, and then I imagine tomorrow there's going to be even more. The conversation is going to have to continue tomorrow, especially, as we await decisions on the NCAA tournament and as we await decisions on, all public gatherings, the NHL season, the beginning of the baseball season. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Remember the time there was it Baltimore? It was during there was some civil unrest, if you will. I think it was in the city of Baltimore where the Orioles game was played in an empty stadium. I recall how bizarre that was. And I'm just so fascinated by the thought of an NCAA champion being crowned in an arena that no one's in. Just fascinated by that thought. But again, I don't think that's going to happen. If you're listening on the podcast, greatly appreciate it. Make sure you head over to YouTube. Check us out. I know Christy's watching. Smoothie Sprout. This is only for YouTube. So if you're listening on the normal form of the podcast, forgive me. Christy had asked. Come here, girls. Come here. Christy had asked about meeting the girls. Come here, baby. This is Smoothie. I don't know if you could see if I can. Come here, baby. Come here. Oh, there's my girls. Can you sit? Oh, there she is. Yeah, there's my babies. Hey, everybody wanted to see you guys. Come here. Everybody wanted to see you guys. Look. Yeah, these are my babies. Oh, yes. These are my girls. So there they are. Appreciate you guys so much for being with us. If you haven't checked out the YouTube stream, please go check it out. Just search Damien Barling. I got my own channel. Become a subscriber there and all of that good stuff. Again, appreciate you for listening. I don't know what the sports world will bring for us tonight. It was certainly a night we won't forget anytime soon, if ever. And whatever happens tonight, we'll have full coverage for you here tomorrow on the podcast with Damien Barling.